are back on the hunt for steelbooks in 2 brand new CEX stores, and in my local CEX store I find a steelbook which I've been looking for literally years. Hello again folks, and welcome back to another episode of Steelbook Hunting in CEX, the series in which every episode we hit up 2 brand new CEX stores on the hunt for bargain steelbooks to add to the collection. But that's not all. In this episode we also have a visit to my local CEX where I find an absolute holy grail steelbook I've been on the lookout for years, and a very weird steelbook pickup from eBay. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. And if you ever miss an episode of Steelbook Hunting in CEX, fear not, I'll link them all down below in a playlist. We're starting our steelbook hunt this time in Ipswich, and this is a fairly large CEX store. It's split over 2 floors, this large floor you can see here, as well as the basement, and we'll be heading to both. But we're starting off in the Xbox One section, a fairly sizable section, so let's hope we can find some steelbooks here. Nothing in the Call of Duty section, which is a shame, as that's normally a fairly decent bet when you are looking for steelbooks, even though I think I have about 80% of the steelbooks they released for COD. But fear not, we did manage to find the most common steelbook for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 4, the Hitman Season 1 steelbook. Now this is one I see all the time, and of course I already have in my collection, but at £10, honestly, it's not bad. But remember, when I'm steelbook hunting in CEX, I'm looking for the bona fide bargains, because as we all know by now, more often than not you can get the steelbook version of a game for the same price as the standard version, and this is something which I'm really looking to take advantage of steelbook hunting in CEX. The Xbox section here in Ipswich is so vast it even has its own Xbox Series X section. Now, normally these are fairly small in most stores I tend to visit, but this was split over 2 shelves. Yes, it wasn't very deep, but it goes to show there is more and more Xbox Series X games making their way into CEX, much like the PlayStation 5, which again has 2 sections here. But unfortunately for today, no steelbooks in either section, which is a real shame. But thankfully, throughout this series, I've discovered that the most likely place to find steelbooks in CEX is in the PlayStation 4 section, and especially Call of Duty steelbooks. That's because for nearly every Call of Duty game released in the past 20 years, they've released a steelbook. Now, I wasn't sure at the time if I had this steelbook or not, so I did pass on it. Unfortunately, I did need this one for the collection, which is a real shame. Moving on then, let's continue our steelbook hunt here in the PlayStation 4 section. And this one is a difficult one because I already own this game right here, Ghost of Tsushima, on the PlayStation 5, which is a director's cut and thus a definitive version of this game. But to the best of my knowledge, this only got a steelbook release on the PlayStation 4. Now this is a very good looking steelbook, but it's still 20 quid. And considering I already own a better version of this game on the PlayStation 5, I did pass on this steelbook. But let me know in the comments down below, for £20, would you have picked this one up? I have said from the start of this series, most of the time you can get the steelbook version of a game for the same price as the standard version. But this here is one of the best bargains I've ever seen steelbook wise in CEX. The special edition of The Last of Us Part 2 is the same price as the standard version of the game. This comes both with a steelbook and an art book. And at £25, that is an absolute steal. I already have that in my collection. If not, I would have grabbed it. We were coming to the end of the PlayStation 4 section, and whilst we had found 3 different steelbooks already, we hadn't found anything which I personally needed for my collection. And I was starting to worry, as, like I said earlier, the PlayStation 4 section is the most likely place to find steelbooks, but thankfully, just under my nose was this copy of Injustice 2. For just £5, this is the perfect example of what I'm looking for when I'm steelbook hunting in CEX. Cheap games with cheap steelbooks, and this is an absolutely fantastic beaten up game, one I don't have in my collection already, and for £5 this absolutely beautiful steelbook is coming home with me. If you're paying CEX a visit here in Ipswich, don't forget that the store is split over 2 levels, and downstairs is the basement, and in there is where they keep all of their DVDs as well as a lot of their retro games, more specifically their Xbox 360 games, and this is the next section in which we will be hunting for steelbooks. What do we find straight away? Quite possibly the most common steelbook ever released, BioShock for the Xbox 360. I have lost count of the number of times I've seen this steelbook. I think it has gone up £1 over the years I've been seeing it. I think it's been £3 the longest time, and it's now up to £4. But who knows? As the Xbox 360 online store closes and more people choose to collect for the 360, maybe now is the best time to buy these steelbooks for the 360 while it's cheap. But unfortunately, this time it doesn't seem like there's any more steelbooks here in the Xbox 360 section except for that BioShock one. But let me know in the comments down below. If you are a steelbook collector, have you already got the BioShock steelbook for the Xbox 360? And quite honestly, if not, let me know why you haven't picked that steelbook up yet. Yes, it can be a one that does get rusty periodically. It is getting harder and harder to find a good copy of that steelbook, but once again, let me know in the comments down below if you already have that steelbook, and if not, get it soon. Our final stop here in Ipswich CEX is the PlayStation 3 section, and much like the Xbox 360, I think that these 7th generation consoles are going to get harder and harder to find steelbooks for in the future. I think by now, most people who want to grab these steelbooks have already picked them up, and much like the Xbox 360, as the PlayStation 3 digital store closes, these games are going to get harder and harder to find, and I think steelbooks, more than the standard version of the game, will be very difficult to find. There was a few steelbooks hiding behind the counter here at Ipswich, but there's no time for that. Pause if you'd like to have a look at these ones. Next up, we're off to Stratford on the hunt for steelbooks. And so far, we'd only managed to find one steelbook in Ipswich. Let's say we have more luck here. Let's start our hunt here in the PlayStation 4 section. That's because, as I've said multiple times this episode, this is the most likely place to find steelbooks here in CEX. I did wonder if these cyberpunks were hiding a steelbook, but I think that's just a standard release of the game in that slipcase which came with a map and postcards. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any other versions of that game. That's the only one I ever seem to see. But we're getting through this section fairly quickly, and this is a very large PlayStation 4 section, but most of the games are facing forward, which when you're looking for steelbooks does make it easier, but it does mean there is slightly less games here on the shelf. So even though it's a very large section, there's not that many games, and unfortunately it doesn't appear that there's any steelbooks, which is a real shame, as like I said, this is the most likely section to find steelbooks. But let's hope here in Stratford we have more luck in the Xbox One section. No luck then in the old faithful PlayStation 4 section. Let's hope we have some more luck here in the Xbox One section. Now, strangely, the Xbox One section is about half the size of the PlayStation 4 section here in Stratford, which is really strange, as normally they're about the same size. But maybe the PlayStation 4 is more popular, or would that be less popular here in Stratford? But unfortunately, so far in the Xbox One section, we're not finding anything. But hiding here at the top of the Xbox Series X, we have one of the cheapest but also best looking steelbooks on the market, Back 4 Blood. Now, this is always around the £5 mark. You see this steelbook fairly often, but honestly, for that price, is an absolute bargain. It's a fantastic game, an amazing looking steelbook, and honestly, it's one that's worth picking up if you see it in good condition. Moving on, or should that be back, from the Xbox Series X to the Xbox 360, and like I said earlier in this episode, the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 sections in CEX stores all around the country are getting smaller, and now is the time to buy, and thankfully this time we have a copy of Lost Planet for the Xbox 360 with the slipcase in the steelbook for just £1.50. An absolute bargain for this Xbox 360 exclusive game. Remember, it's only Lost Planet 2 and 3 that found their way to the other consoles, and honestly, I think this one is a bit of a hidden gem on the Xbox 360. And it seems the Xbox 360 section here in Stratford is a bit of a hidden gem for finding steelbooks, as here we have quite possibly the second most common steelbook for the Xbox 360, Turok, a very nice looking embossed steelbook, much like this one right here, once again embossed, Stranglehold Collector's Edition, which I did already have in my collection, so I did leave behind, but it's an amazing looking steelbook. Our final stop is the PlayStation 3 section, and here we have the Steelbook for Modern Warfare 2. Like I said, these Steelbooks for Call of Duty are very, very common, so I did pass on this one this time just because the slipcase was in pretty rough condition, and I'm sure I will see this one again in the future. Fingers crossed for that one, because like I said, these PlayStation 3 sections, much like the Xbox 360 sections, are shrinking all around the country. And honestly, it does worry me that finding steelbooks for these 7th generation consoles in the future could be very, very difficult. Now, this isn't a steelbook, but I thought this was very interesting here in Stratford CEX, the freeloader for the Nintendo GameCube, which allows you to play American and Japanese games on your PAL GameCube. A very good way to be able to play a lot of extra games on your GameCube, and especially when it comes to some of the Japanese games, to be able to play these for a much cheaper price. I was super excited to find this steelbook right here, Doom 2016 for the Xbox One, in my local CX here in the fine city of Norwich, and we'll take it back to the games room for the pickups, and I'll tell you why I've been hunting for this steelbook for absolutely years. Here we are then, back in the games room after steelbook hunting in 2 brand new CEX stores. But here is the thing, whenever you steelbook hunt in CEX, there's no guarantee you are going to find any steelbooks. You cannot check the stock online of these steelbooks, you just have to visit the store and roll the dice on the day. But thankfully, this time the gamble paid off, and in each store we visited, we managed to pick up 1 steelbook. The first steelbook we managed to pick up from the Ipswich branch of CEX is this game right here, Injustice 2 for the PlayStation 4, and this is in really, really nice condition, and it even has the slipcase, and this was just £5. Now, this is an absolutely incredible DC beaten up game. I really enjoy this game, and honestly, just look at this steelbook. For £5, it's an absolute bona fide bargain. And speaking of bargains, I want to go back and address that Last of Us 2 steelbook which we saw in the Ipswich branch of CEX. That was an absolute bargain. The special edition of that game with the steelbook and the art book in that beautiful sleeve for the same price as the standard version of the game. That's because, if you didn't know by now, 9 times out of 10 CEX charge the same price for the steelbook version of a game as they do for the standard edition. And whilst that one was an absolute bargain, I did leave it behind for the next collector because I already have it in my collection. Second store we visited was Stratford, and once again only 1 pickup from here. There was a lot of steelbooks in store, but unfortunately I had most of these in the collection already, but I did grab this bargain right here, Lost Planet for the Xbox 360. This is in really, really nice condition, and once again comes with a slipcase for just £1.50. Now, this does have a little bit of rust damage on the side, which is something you do need to look out for with some of these older steelbooks. But inside, it is fully complete with the Art of Lost Planet as well as the bonus CD. Now, you may be wondering why I was so excited to find this steelbook right here, Doom 2016. Now, it's not a very expensive steelbook, it's only £3 in CEX, but here's the thing. I have never seen this steelbook in CEX, but I have been on the hunt for this one for absolutely ages. That's because I needed this steelbook to complete my collector's edition of Doom. I bought this absolutely years ago on eBay. It is fully complete, except it didn't come with the game. So I've been on the hunt for this particular steelbook for absolutely years. Now, you may be saying to yourself, Dan, this is the PlayStation 4 version and this is an Xbox One game. Well, fear not, the steelbook is the same for every version of the game. Which brings us on to our final steelbook this time. Now, this is actually a pickup from eBay, but as soon as I came across this steelbook, I knew I had to grab it. Not just as a steelbook collector, but also as a WWE fan. And even better, if you like this steelbook, you can still jump on eBay and buy yourself a copy. Now this is the steelbook only. This was £3.48, but I have never seen this steelbook before. It is the Suplex City steelbook for WWE 2K16. Now, we all know who is on the cover of 2K16, and I think this steelbook in the future is going to get harder and harder to find. Yes, it is steelbook only, but for £3.48, it's an absolute steal, for lack of a better term. And speaking of steals, check out these free steelbooks we managed to add to the collection, this time for an absolute steal price of less than £10 for the free. It just goes to prove there is no better or cheaper way to build a steelbook collection than Steelbook Hunting in CEX. But if you don't believe me, join me next time and find out if we strike out or strike steel Steelbook Hunting in CEX. See you soon!